We're going to just do the first one, and then we'll have our coffee break. The first one, presents. Presents. What does that mean? This is a present, right? And if we add an S to the end, it's presents. This is different. This is a different spelling, E-N-C-E. Presence is a noun that means being within reach or call, being close. Now, why is presence important to tell other people about Jesus Christ? We read that in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was truly God. And the Word became a human being and lived here with us. God with us. Emmanuel. You see, Jesus came to live with us, to show us the truth and God's undeserved kindness to us. You see? He came here. And so we should be in the world too, just like Jesus. Some people like to go to a mountaintop to meditate and pray. But Jesus is our example. We are to be in the world. Not of it, but in it. To be present. Jesus helps us to understand this when he says, you are like salt for everyone on earth. Strange. You are like salt? He says, but if salt no longer tastes like salt, how can it make food salty? All it is good for is to be thrown out or walked on. I understand that. If my salt doesn't taste salty, then throw it out. It's no good. No use. What does this mean? I should be like salt. You should be like salt. We look back in time and we see that salt was very valuable. Some of the Roman soldiers were paid in salt. Not money, but salt. Why? Salt is valuable because it keeps food good, fresh. It stops the bad microorganisms from growing. So we know that we salt fish, and the fish stays good, doesn't it? It does not spoil or rot. We know that salt adds flavor to our food. So Jesus said, you are like salt for the world. So you work for goodness. That you are salt in this dark world, and that you stand for goodness. You stand for what is right in the eyes of God. You stand for his standards. You follow Christ. And you being in the world will add flavor. You will bless other people around you. You are like salt for everyone on earth. So salt works for goodness. It keeps things good. And so that is what you are called to do. When you keep things good, when you listen to God and obey God and follow him, then you bless people around you. You see, we read, don't let evil defeat you. Remember? To turn away from God is sin. And we need to follow Jesus, to walk in the ways of God. This is the only and true way to happiness. And this life is a good life. Don't let evil defeat you. You see, last week we learned that Satan does not want you to obey God, does he? And he will try to stop you from doing what is right, from doing what is good in the eyes of God. But don't let him. You stand against evil, right? But you stand for, you work for good. Look at this. You defeat evil with good. It's so amazing that when you do something good for another person, you push back the powers of darkness. You defeat evil. And so we are called to be in this world looking for opportunities to do good, to walk in the ways of God, and to do good. Stand against evil and do good things. And you look at this man. Some of you know him. Remember? Martin Luther, right? And this man, he stood against evil. There were people in this world that said that the black community in the United States were less than the white community in the States. And he stood against evil, and sometimes you must stand alone. He stood against evil and he worked for the good of people. So you see him standing there, representing God, God's goodness. And you will look in history and you will see so many people that have stood alone, who stand for good and defeat evil with good. Listen to these words. We should help people whenever we can. We should think about others and not about ourselves. Don't get tired of helping others. You see, how do you tell people about Jesus Christ? Be salt. Stand for what is good and stand against evil. People will look at you and they will thank our Father in heaven for you. Paul explains, God planned for us to do good things and to live as he always wanted us to live. That's why he sent Christ to make us what we are. We are a new creation. We are children of God. And now we must act like children of God with the power of the Holy Spirit. See? And God has things for us to do. He's planned for us to do good things and to live as he always wanted us to live. People will look at you and they will thank Father in heaven for you. All of these people are pictures of Nellie McClung, and she's a very famous Canadian woman who stood for the rights of women in Canada. We have a minister, Tommy Douglas. He used to be a preacher, but he then went into politics and became a minister because he believed that all people should have health care. And we have Mother Teresa, as you know her, Jackie Pullinger, who went to serve people in the walled city of Hong Kong. These are just examples of people who follow Christ and who show the gospel of Jesus in the way they live. And then we have my uncle, great-great-great-great-great-uncle Horace Greeley, who worked alongside Abraham Lincoln to stop slavery in the United States. This man, some of my Chinese students remember this man. His name is Norman Bethune. Bo, how do you say that?
In Chinese?
Yeah.
Bai Chuan.
Bai Chuan?
Yeah, Bai Chuan.
Bai Chuan. Okay. Many of my Chinese students remember him because he is a great Canadian man who helped the Chinese during the war between China and Japan. He was born on March 3rd, 1890, into a deeply religious Christian family in Gravenhurst, Ontario, Canada. When you read about his family, his father was a Presbyterian minister. His mother had been a missionary. Like his mother and father, Norman Bethune decided to serve the less fortunate. He became a doctor who served the poor in Canada, the Republicans in the Spanish Civil War, and the Chinese during their invasion by Japan. The Chinese people, they love Norman Bethune. Why? Because he saw a need and he went and helped people far from his own country. God planned for him to help the Chinese. In fact, the Canadian government put a statue up of Norman Bethune. They call him a Canadian of national historical significance. But for me, he is a man who represented Christ well to the world. Jesus said, "But if salt no longer tastes like salt, how can it make food salty? All it is good for is to be thrown out or walked on." What does that mean? Well, we are called salt. And so when I look at this, I have a dish of salt. It keeps things good and it adds flavor. But we read here that if salt no longer tastes like salt, you see, this is the world. And if you become like the world, the salt doesn't change, but it doesn't taste like salt anymore. You see, it's really good for nothing. You need to be in the world, but not of the world. Don't love the things of the world. It's very important. As Christians, sometimes we feel as though we stand alone. We're different. God calls us to be different. That's why we're called his chosen and special people. So, Jesus then said, "You are the light of the world. You are the salt of the earth and light of the world. You are like a light for the whole world. A city built on top of a hill cannot be hidden, and no one would light a lamp and place it under a clay pot." What does that mean? So you put the light on. No one would shine a light like this and put a clay pot on it. That's what Jesus said. He said, "A lamp is placed on a lampstand where it can give light." Right? A lamp is placed on a lampstand where it can give light to everyone in the house. We are called light. What is light? When Jesus speaks of this, you remember that he is called the light of the world. Right? He brings light into the dark world. Well, now we have Jesus Christ within us. And so his light should shine through us to other people. Don't hide it. Let your light so shine. What does that mean? To shine my light. Jesus said, "I am the light for the world. Follow me, and you won't be walking in the dark. You will have light that gives life." The light that gives life. The Lord and the Spirit are one and the same, and the Lord's Spirit sets us free, so our faces are not covered. They show the bright glory. See? They show the bright glory of the Lord as the Lord's Spirit makes us more and more like our glorious Lord. The Holy Spirit begins to change us. And now the very light of Jesus Christ shows through us. We look more and more like Jesus. How? God's Spirit makes us loving, joyful, peaceful, patient, kind, good, faithful, gentle, and self-controlled.